going to.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So like we said, we're specifically talking about packing and prepping. I'm sure off to college is on everyone's mind right now, especially for the parents and caregivers here who have incoming freshmen. Um, there's just so many things to think about. Of course, lots of exciting things this summer. Your student is going to get to find out who their roommates are, their dorm assignments, start packing all the dorm room supplies, all that fun stuff. But in addition to that, obviously, having diabetes, there are some extra things to consider. So we're going to hopefully be covering some packing tips that will make the transition to campus smooth. Yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead, hand it over to our panelists, ask them to introduce themselves, give a just a brief explanation of your connection to diabetes and to the diabetes link. Becca, if you want to kick us off, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peyton. So my name's Becca. I'm also a program coordinator, same position as Peyton at the Diabetes Link. And I also was a founder and a chapter leader at my university when I was in school at Clark University. That was awesome. And I also did NextGen, which was a really cool part of some of the Diabetes Links programming. And I definitely recommend that for anyone that's like coming into school. Yeah, that's me. Can I popcorn to Brenna?
Thank you. Hi, all. My name is Brenna. I go to the University of Akron in Akron, Ohio. I'll be a junior this coming semester. I was diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 15 in high school, so a little bit later. But coming into college, I really loved the community that camp had given me. I was a camp counselor for the ADA camps over the summer, which they're awesome. And I found out about the diabetes link, and my university did not have one. So luckily, I was able to start that up, and it's been a blast. Like holding meetings and meeting other diabetics and building that community. I'll popcorn it to the next one.
Hi everyone, my name is Bella. I go to UC Davis. I am going to be a senior. Hard to believe. I'm studying nutrition science and I've been diabetic for 14 years now. I was diagnosed at the age of 7. Currently, I'm one of the board members at our chapter at UC Davis. And I couldn't have found a better community. I was really searching for my group of people in college. It's hard your first year, but I'm so glad I found them. I literally walked and I saw a flyer that said like a diabetes club, something related to diabetes. And I was like, oh my gosh, like these are my people. Like I have to find them. And I've met so many, and it's so exciting when you meet someone new. You see someone else with like a Dexcom or an Omnipod in class, and it's always comforting because they can relate to you. Anyways, I'm gonna pass it on to the next person.
Hi guys, my name's Claire. I've been type 1 diabetic since right before I turned 2. So it's like 21 years now. I'm about to graduate from the University of Colorado, and the Diabetes Link has been in my life for a while now. When I started college at the College of New Jersey, I was just a member of the club. And then COVID happened, and I ended up transferring to the University of Colorado Boulder, where I started our chapter here. And it's been really cool to see it grow over the last couple of years.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So excited to have all these amazing panelists here with us today. Before we move on, we just want to acknowledge you've already started to hear some of these stories that college looks different for everyone, and the off to college transition process looks different for everyone, whether you're newly diagnosed, if you've had it for many years, like some of us here, if you're a student or a caregiver, it's going to look very different. So we can kind of get a sense of where everyone is on their journey. If all of our participants here just want to put in the chat where you are in your college search process, where you are in your diabetes diagnosis, just let us know so we can get a sense for that. And in the meantime, while you guys are doing that, we will kick off with our first topic. We know that this time of year can feel super busy. Like we said, you just graduated high school, so you're in the midst of celebrating with your family and your friends and all of your accomplishments. And then in just a few months, you'll be away at college. And it's totally normal to have a lot of mixed feelings. You might be feeling excited, anxious, nostalgic, nervous, probably a mix of everything. So it is especially important to take care of your mental and physical health during this period of change because it's a really big one. And so for our panel, our first question, if you guys can take yourself back to the summer before your freshman year of college, what were you feeling and what tools or what support system kind of helped you navigate those feelings? Becca, if you want to kick off again, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely my freshman year before going into college, I definitely was pretty nervous. I was making a pretty big like physical transition, going from like overseas to the US. So I was kind of just like scared about what that would look like. And I definitely found that some of my best resources, were things I found online, and then also like the support system of like my family, especially just like figuring out the medical care system. But then as I transitioned through school, definitely one of the main reasons that I started a chapter of the diabetes link at my school was that it was like it seemed like I really was missing like the community around me of like fellow young adults with diabetes so that I could just talk about like what was going on. So as soon as I found that and then also found the diabetes link and all the resources that came along with that, honestly, that's when I felt comfortable being in college with diabetes. So that really only came like junior year, but that's really how I made it through.
I'd like to piggyback off of Becca, if that's okay. I will say, like, it kind of took me a second, like getting into freshman year, new roommates, definitely a lot of feelings, very anxious, just nervous as to how people are going to like approach you. And, it is anxiety filling when I'm away from my parents. Luckily I'm only 2 hours away, so nothing crazy. But they also had some anxieties of their own, even though I was older when I was diagnosed, and it's very common. But I will say having them, and I was very lucky to have my sister on campus for my first year as well. She was like a fifth year senior studying civil engineering. So she was like there for 1 year because she had work. So we were like it was nice to like overlap for 1 more year and feel comfortable on campus with her. And trust me, she always made sure my sugars were good. They continued to watch over them, and they have like the follow app or whatever for Dexcom. So they still always text me, "Hey, you okay? Low blood sugar." But definitely some feelings of anxiety and things like that. But having my family there definitely helps.
Um, I also have a very supportive family. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. But I think I got really lucky with my roommates. I was very honest at the beginning. I told them, I live with diabetes. It's something that I have to manage all the time. There might be points where I have to wake up in the middle of the night and I have to check my sugar. Alarms may be going off. I kind of need you guys to be there to help me because this is my first time living by myself. And I'm so glad that they were more than willing to help me. So they were always really good about like, oh, did you grab a juice before you go? Did you grab your little blood sugar snack? And like sometimes my alarms wouldn't wake me up at night, and they would make sure that I got up at night. Um, yeah, I think making sure that your roommates understand what's going on really helps. Because without them, I think it would be really hard.
So I can add on, the summer before freshman year for me, I was absolutely not ready at all. Um, I was at the point where I was just kind of pretending I didn't have diabetes, like kind of guessing my insulin doses, all this stuff, all over the place. So even living at home, type 1 diabetes management was pretty rough. And I actually decided to take my first semester off of college, which seemed really scary at the time. And it seemed like I'd be so behind because all my friends were going. But looking back, it's just like it was not even a step back, like just stopping to take care of myself, to take 2 steps forward. If I had forced myself to go or just kept pushing ahead without stopping to take care of myself, it would not have been a good experience. And I think that's important to remember in college that we're all going at our own pace, whether we have diabetes or not. And the best thing to do is to focus on you. And yeah, looking back, it all worked out. I went back to school in the spring, and then COVID hit, but I got that little bit of experience at college. And then I ended up moving to Colorado, where I met a couple friends who were diabetic, and I just realized how much it helps to have a couple people in your life like that are also diabetic. And like are super supportive and great, but having specifically diabetic friends is just a different experience. And yeah, I started the Diabetes Link chapter, and it just goes to show, yeah, you can be completely unprepared, and it's going to be okay, day by day.
I love that. I love that sentiment too, that it's so important to focus on yourself, because sometimes we don't even realize how much we are deprioritizing diabetes in our lives until it's really affecting us. And we don't always realize how much we could benefit from our support systems and from communicating with our friends and family about what we need. So, yeah, that's really awesome. I love that.
All right, so our next kind of topic question is all about the stuff that you have to bring to college, the stuff you need to be prepared for. You're going to be packing, maybe organizing, maybe that's your thing, maybe it's not, getting new things, and that's not even including all things diabetes. So panelists, how did you tackle organizing or not organizing, maybe just making sure you had your diabetes supplies? What worked for you, whether that's storage, or just like conversations with making sure you're getting your supplies regularly. What are things that maybe you didn't pack or didn't think to bring that you wish you had and maybe brought with you the next time you came back from home or the next semester?
I definitely say that the supplies that I needed the most ended up being like site changes. I feel like a big thing that like you don't realize is that about halfway through the semester you're gonna run out. And so you're either going home or like you happen to be able to get a prescription from your doctor. So I definitely recommend packing extra. That's like the first thing. Pack like way extra if possible. But also I would recommend getting a PCP or a new endo as soon as possible moving to the new place, if not even before. And then also transferring everything to the new pharmacy, because that also it's not impossible, but it is like slightly more problem solving and slightly more difficult if you have to like mail pump supplies.
I will definitely add on to that. Having extra, especially site changes, is huge. I can't even tell you the amount of times that like I'm like just walking around and my like site gets caught on something and boom, it gets torn out, and I'm like, crap, I have class in 15 minutes. So I always have extra of those like stuffed in my backpack, ready to go. But packing wise, like and like actually moving things in, I always just had a drawer, like just for diabetes supplies. So I would bring like multiple boxes. I'd have probably like close to a 3 month supply. Like that's what I would get at one time normally. I get my supplies from like CCS Medical. Luckily, my mom still takes care of that. So I always am on top of like, okay, when do I need more site changes? So I let her know and she can order it and things like that. But having some form of organization, I also have like this 3D, it's random, but my sister got it for me as a gift one Christmas. It's like a 3D printed like holder for site changes and stuff. I think she got it off of Etsy. And it's actually very convenient because like you can keep things like away, but it's also nice to have like the diabetes supplies like right there. If I'm hurry up, like out of the shower, want to do a quick change, I don't have to go digging for it every time. So that is just like, honestly, it can hold like a month's worth of supplies. So it's kind of nice that I only have to refill it like once a month.
So I definitely had trouble. I didn't even think about having to find another doctor or have to figure out where to get things. Because honestly, I would just like tell my mom, "Oh, mom, can you please order me more medication, please?" But when you're in college, your mom's not there anymore. Luckily, I still have my same endo, so I would just make sure I saw my doctor whenever I had breaks. Or if I did have concerns, we would able to meet over telehealth. I guess telehealth is really big after COVID. So maybe your endo is very flexible. I also had a drawer dedicated to just my snacks. Insulin's also a big one. I remember telling my roommates, "Hey, I'm gonna need just this section of the little mini fridge for my medicine," and they're pretty cool about it. And then, yeah, I would say always having extra supplies with you, even on the go, like on top of just having stuff in your dorm. now that I'm living off campus, like, and I can't just like go to my dorm and like get my stuff if like my site were to come out. I think having like one or two things on you really helps because even going an hour without like your insulin can really change some things, you know?
I will just add again, just have extra slight changes on you because it's happened so many times. And also like always having low snacks on you, especially when you start to live off campus. My chapter, we actually started this like low blood sugar thing around campus where at the student center and at the gym, we had like a bin just full of like fruit snacks, stuff like that. And we tried to advertise it the best that we could, but you know, that's not always going to be the case. And then one other thing that came to mind in terms of packing was like when you go to college, you're probably going to start as you get older, like taking vacations on your own or with your friends. So maybe you're going on a spring break trip and you don't have your mom being like, hey, do you have your insulin? And in your head, you're like, yeah, I got it. And then you end up like in Seattle and you don't have Novolog. And this did happen one time. And yeah, it's stressful and just don't do that to yourself. So yeah, I would say just like I finally just created a little like packing kit. Like I just put in stuff to use specifically when I go on a trip. Cause yeah, I can't be trusted when I pack last minute for a flight, but those are just some tips as well.
I wanted to add one more thing, sorry. I think it's also important to have like a backup plan, just in case like your pump fails or I feel like a lot of us rely a lot on our like Dexcom and like our pump, but like what if like you lose your charger or what if you know, the worst case scenario, I think it's also important if you make a plan with your endo about like backup plans, like what if the pharmacy is closed or you know, making sure that all your bases are covered because it does get scary when it's like 1 a.m. and you don't have anything and you're not, you know, home.
Okay. So I think we're actually gonna skip our next topic because we went a little bit over time. Andrea, can we popcorn to topic 4, if that's cool?
Sure, and I feel like we covered that a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so family dynamics, and I'm sure all of you have different family makeups, different situations. Becca, you're talking about coming from overseas, so different things that you all are managing. But I'm sure at some point your caregivers were worried at least a bit about you going off to college, whether that was close to home or far away from home. So can you talk to us a little bit about what worked for you and your caregivers, whether that was communication agreements, the types of conversations or boundaries you might put in place, and maybe also like how did that evolve over time, if it did?
Yeah, very good question. So yeah, I think that's gonna be different for everyone, of course. And I definitely think as far as like communication agreements go, they're always going to be both perspectives of like the child that's going to college and like a freshman and like wanting to just like branch out and like figure out who they are and then also managing diabetes and is like fully now like a 17 or 8-year-old 19-year-old adult that like is aware of what that means. But then there's like a parent that's also like, you know, nervous that their kid's going to get low in the middle of the night. So there does need to be kind of like a intersection of like how much does a student feel comfortable with a parent also checking in, but also how much can we like ease our parents' concern? And I definitely know my parents were worried about my blood sugars getting low in the middle of the night. However, they also live not only like essentially 12 hours in a different time zone, but also halfway around the world. So they can't really help me if I'm low. So basically what we did, I would consider that kind of an extreme example, but what we did is my like the university police technically knew that if my blood sugars were ever really low, what to do. So that was one course of action. The other thing was that both my friends and my roommate had Dexcom follow, so they were watching my blood sugar. So if I ever got really low, they would get alerted. We set up load stations for my chapter, so that happened to be something that existed already. There were vending machines in the building. And then essentially like we just made sure that my emergency contacts were aware that I probably wouldn't be contacting my parents. So it really was just like creating a contingency plan for that. And then as far as a communication agreement went, we kind of just like saw how it went through time, but really ended up realistically talking like once-ish a week. And then that just evolved as much as I had the highs and lows of life and like was going through stuff or not. And then sometimes got really busy or sometimes like needed to talk a lot. So
I will say I have a little bit different situation than you. My parents are only 2 hours away, so it's not bad. I'm still living on campus and everything. But towards the end of high school, I remember like they'd be getting every alarm on the Dexcom was put on their phones. And finally, I'm like, guys, if you don't want to wake up in the middle of the night because I have a high blood sugar, like let me just take the high blood sugar off. I sleep like a rock throughout the night, so I definitely feel more comfortable with them having the low alerts on, and they do have those on. And so does my sister, who also lives in Akron, so that's kind of nice. She's only like 5 minutes away from me. Um, but communication wise, like they will definitely text me if they see my blood sugar dropping, be like, hey, are you good? Are you feeling okay? Like, make sure you get some juice, make sure you get some snacks, eat a little bit something with protein to keep it up. But like I feel like the communication thing, like actually getting to call and talk with them and talk about my day, that is very dependent on like what is going on in my life. In college, like you want to get so involved, and sometimes you do, but the thing that comes with that is also you have so many things going on at the same time while also trying to work in schoolwork and things like that. So that just comes with time. And if I get to call them, I text them every day, but if I get to call them and talk about my day, that's just a nice little cherry on top for the week.
I actually just started Dexcom like not even a year ago, so I've never had that. I've never like shared my numbers with my parents. They've never like I think that's such a cool thing. So I wish I had that my freshman year. Um, but I would just say I know from like my end, I was kind of annoyed just because like my mom was just so concerned, but then I had to like realize like I'm her baby, she's also experiencing her first child going off to college, so just like reassuring her that I'm okay. She also had my roommate's numbers, so if like anything were to go wrong, my roommates would just text her. So just having that like communication, that open line of communication, and yeah, I honestly wish I had that Dexcom feature though. That would have helped a lot.
Yeah, and just to add on, I agreed with what Becca said, how I think it depends person to person and like family dynamic to family dynamic. And like, because I also had a weird situation because I went to school for 6 weeks in spring 2020 and then I got sent home for like a year and a half. So I really didn't live alone far away until I was like 20. But the relationship I had with my mom, like she kind of knew, like she could say stuff like, hey, like make sure you manage your blood sugars, all this stuff, but really it was kind of up to me. And in those low moments, I also had Dexcom, but she didn't have like the follow up either. So I think she just kind of would check in and be like, hey, like, how are you doing? Like more supportive, like just for mental health and like, hey, how are you overall? And I think just knowing that was there was really, really comforting. And then yeah, having like my roommate and my friends follow me on the follow app and I have them text me like drink juice or like eat whatever. And it's just really sweet and it just makes you feel like you're supported all around. So
Awesome. So that's actually a great segue into our next topic, because once you are moved into campus, you're going to be adding new people to your support system. So in addition to your family from home, hopefully continuing to communicate and help you out, you're going to have roommates and new college friends who are going to be around and able to support you. So for our panelists, let's talk a little bit about move-in day. What was it like when you first arrived on campus? When did you decide to talk to your roommates, maybe to talk to your RA, your professors about your diabetes? And what did that process kind of look like for you?
yeah, I think that's the introducing diabetes to like new people is always going to be something I think that changes for me person to person. Often I think the wearable technology kind of does it for you a little bit because people already have like noticed and then you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I have diabetes. And they're either like, oh, my grandma has that, or they're like, oh, cool, yeah, I have a friend that had that like in high school. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. That kind of it just like is already a little more desensitized, I think, than like even 10 years ago. But as far as like roommates, I don't know if this is a thing at all schools, but I think a lot of schools do roommate agreements. So basically you're asked by your RA to like sit down and talk about like essentially your boundaries with your roommate, like when you first move in together and then you like sign a contract about those boundaries. I think that's a pretty good time to talk about blood sugars, and like alarms that might be going off, or just kind of like genuinely like the emergency circumstances, and just like general diabetes stuff. But more so the part that's important is like, when are they gonna step in? Um, and then as far as professors go, I honestly, after, oh, there's my pump's done. As far as professors go, just like that, the first after the first like class, I usually would go up to them and let them know that like I probably would be on my phone to check my blood sugars, or like if I had alarms go off in the middle of class, what that was, and to like not be like worried because it is kind of an intense alarm when the pump goes off. Um yeah, so I would say as soon as possible, just so that you're not like worrying about it, because I've never really had like people be rude, and if they were rude, I was like, okay, cool, bye. Like, so yeah, as soon as possible, I would recommend.
Yeah, I actually ended up registering for my like accommodations. You know, it's like you can eat food in class. Technically, I have like where I can go and take it at like our testing center. And so I get extra time if like my blood sugar were to go low or something like that. And if I was dealing with that. However, I actually have never like used them. I just have them in place and I'm always sure to like they have like a 2 week mark. You have to go to the professor and say, hey, like this is who I am, this is like my accommodations. And I'm normally just like, listen, I will email you. I'm a great communicator. Like I'll communicate if something is wrong, but hopefully nothing goes wrong throughout the semester, which nothing has. So that's good. But it's always good to keep those and just have them in place just in case. And then as like far as like my roommates go, I've been very blessed like these past 2 years. My freshman year roommate was like, you know, a good roommate. And I talked to her about it. She was actually pre-med, so like she kind of got it, but like she wasn't really on top of it as much. And it's not her job to be on top of it, but my past year roommates and my roommates now, like they are genuinely amazing. And you know, I had that conversation with them like very at the beginning, like, hey, this is, you know, me, this is what I have. Not that I'm putting anything on you guys, but here's like my parents' numbers if something were to happen and things like that. And they just always check on me if they hear a beep or something like that. So um definitely, you know, like reach out to those people who are going to be in like near you and in class and like your professors as well. Even if you don't end up doing accommodations, I still think it's good to have a conversation with them.
I would say the accommodations thing has probably been the smoothest part of my college experience with diabetes. Before I even started school, I sat down with like I guess you would call them like a counselor, I guess, or advocate, with the disability center. And I told them, yeah, I have diabetes. I wasn't really given much accommodations in high school, but I wanted to look into what could be offered here. And they offer a lot. So I get extended exam time. I'm allowed to bring snacks with me to class. I even get extensions on assignments. Like let's say I have like I just have crazy numbers that day and it just like really affects me and I can't really get work done. Um, it's as easy as that. And sometimes the conversations, like I know for the first couple of years, at least for me, I was a little bit nervous about having to explain my situation to every professor because I'm on the quarter system. So you're meeting a new professor every so often. So it kind of seems like exhausting and you're just like, what's even the point sometimes? But at my school, we have this thing called accommodations letter. So we just send that out to it's basically the same thing. You send it to all the professors and it lists all your accommodations. And it kind of like skips over that awkward conversation that some people tend to like run away from. And you don't have to take the accommodations, but knowing that is there, it's really nice. I know a lot of my diabetic friends don't use it, but I always tell them it's so amazing. You guys should really do it because it's just nice to know that there's things like that.
Real quick, I'll just highlight the like roommate part again, because it's already scary enough moving in with a stranger when you've been living at home your whole life. And I would say just like say it like right away, say it early, and also just hit the main points that are important. You know, like this is what happens when my blood sugar goes low. I know it came up with my roommate because we got air conditioning because of my accommodation, so she was quite happy with me. But I remember like I just was very casual about it, but like, you know, like this is serious and this is what can happen. And just I remember my endocrinologist advising me to like show her how to use a glucagon pen with an orange and like be like, here's an orange, here's how you do it. And I was like, I don't want to do that to a stranger. Like that's weird when I'm living with them. So it's like do what you're comfortable with and like just be to the point and just make it casual, but also be like, yeah, this is just like, please let me know if my alarm goes off, stuff like that.
Awesome. All right, so we're down to our final formal question. You know, we're all about at the Link the power of peer support. You all have talked about starting or being part of chapters, which we love. So what type of support did you seek out or receive during your transition from high school to college? Can you talk about maybe some of your involvement with the Diabetes Link and how hopefully that has helped your journey while you've been in college?
Yeah, so definitely a really cool part of being a part of a chapter, and this is literally what I talk about all day, so I could do this for hours. So I'm gonna give everyone else also more time to talk for this one. It really is the ability to, you don't have to ever have the introduction of I have diabetes because it's already like the underlying theme. So it's really nice to be able to have friends where you never have to explain any of that. And it's just a bunch of like fellow young adults that are going to college. And then you just happen every once in a while to beep and everyone's like, oh, you're 300, ha ha ha, okay. So it's like a nice, like, it feels like a nice break because of the baseline just being the same. And I definitely would say that's just like the overarching, like, thing that I appreciated the most about it was that it felt like a break. Yeah. And then also just generally as far as support systems go, and this is kind of just like across the board for everyone to be aware of, because I think this can be helpful for anyone, regardless of like having diabetes or not. I think often universities have counseling programs that are available, like subsidized as either through the school or they are like grad students. So it's like completely free to go to counseling. And I definitely think that that is a good thing for people to take advantage of through that transition, because it can be really tough to like become an adult regardless of diabetes. So definitely would recommend like any like mental health services that can be supportive, as well as like peer support. And I'll just pass it on to Brenna.
I would very much agree with Becca in that. Like my school has that same thing. It's very easy to get started. You can even do it virtually, I'm sure, at many other universities. So I would recommend that as well. But coming from like high school to college, that like I mentioned the camps, the ADA camps, and I actually had never attended them as like a, you know, as a camper. However, I was able to do it as a counselor, and my endocrinologist was the one who mentioned that to me. And like going there, that was the first time I had met like other young adult diabetics that were also camp counselors, and like talking to them, hearing their stories about how they're in college and they're having fun, but they're also being safe. And like it honestly, I love that. Like I love, still I text them this day, you know, we see each other once a summer. And so coming into college, like I was like, I really hope that we have like some sort of something. And my endocrinologist was the one who also actually mentioned the link in the first place. And I did some digging. Fortunately, you know, Akron did not have one at the time, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I remember like being in bed one night and I'm like, I'm gonna just submit this form and say that I'm interested. And I remember Peyton reached out to me and we got the ball rolling, and it took a little bit, of time to find people. Like the University of Akron isn't a huge campus. It's not super small, but it's not huge. So finding people was the hardest part. But now that like we're established, like I've had more people join, and more people who aren't even diabetic who just want to learn about it or support one another join, which is really cool. So I feel like this community of like young adults is very helpful for even anyone, even if they're not diabetic, even if they just want to learn or have, you know, loved ones who are diabetic. But yeah.
Um, I didn't have any friends growing up with diabetes. I didn't even really think it happened to people my age. I really thought it was just for old people. So I kind of just avoided telling people I had diabetes. And it wasn't until I literally saw a flyer for this chapter and I was like, these are my people. Like literally I saw it, I was like, this is like, where has this been all my life? And when I finally got to meet with other diabetics that were my age, it's so comforting. It doesn't feel like I have to put up like a wall. It doesn't feel like I have to explain myself. I feel like I can actually be myself. It's so funny too, because like I remember we were hanging out recently and like one of our Omnipods went off. We're like, who is it? Who is it? I don't know. I feel like I found like another family on campus, where I can actually be myself, and I don't know where I would be without this group of people, truly.
I just want to add on, and also Bella, that makes me so happy to hear that. That's just so lovely. Because it reminds me of how this year we had like 3 freshmen that came consistently to our meetings like every week. And they had no idea who the others were like the first meeting, but they kept showing up. And then by the end of the year, like they were all like so close and it was so cute. They're gonna be on the board next year. And it was just so cool because like I don't know, as a freshman, COVID hit and I was all over the place, but like just to see them be so like stable and confident and have found their place in college already. Yeah, I recommend joining a chapter like right away.
All right, well, that was our last formal question. I think we've answered most of the questions that came through on the chat, but if anybody has any additional or would like some more, a deeper dive into any of the topics, please feel free to add them in the chat. We have a few minutes to do that. So please ask away. I know we did have one about changing endocrinologists when you move to school. And I put in basically that from what I know, most people keep their home endocrinologist. Is that true for everybody on the panel? Becca, you might have had a different experience with coming from overseas, but would you say from your knowledge, especially with your chapters, are most of either you or your members keeping their home endocrinologist when they come to college?
Yeah, I think people keep them for the most part, honestly, because you usually can go back. It's like they'll ask in college for you to go every like 3 to 6 months. So I think often people just do the 6 month option, or they'll go home during like a one break to like re-up on stuff, especially if supplies.
Okay.
I don't know if someone has a different answer or more.
Yeah, I still have mine. I really thought about getting a new one, but I felt really comfortable with mine. And we just hopped on a Zoom call if I needed her. And every time I'm back home, like I have an appointment already scheduled for the summer. So, I don't feel like you have to if you don't want to. There's definitely ways around it.
You also can always go to your health center, and I am fairly certain they can prescribe everything you would need, right, guys? I think. Is that right? Yeah.
I mean, I would check. It depends on what kind of school you go to, right? So larger universities are going to have more resources and smaller schools might have a different setup for their health center. So definitely something you should look into prior to going away or going to campus and figure out kind of what that looks like. I'd also say if your supplies come monthly and you have to go pick them at a pharmacy compared to mail order where you're getting a 3 month supply at once, these are all things to kind of look at as options and or like how that would impact what you need to do to be prepared. We did also have another one for all of you all, especially maybe in your chapters or just personal friends that are male that have type 1 diabetes, and their experience with like roommates and friends. Have they been understanding? It seems like things are a little bit different with women. So I don't know if you have experience with male friends that have type 1 and like have seen their experience with like their roommates or other male friends that don't have type 1. Like, have they been supportive? Claire, it looks like you came off mute.
Yeah, my ex-boyfriend had T1D, and so I saw like how his roommate interacted with him and his friends, and I would say I always saw them be supportive. You know, they like bring humor into it. That's how my friends have always done it too. This was like a very deep question with just like just how different genders can communicate and stuff like that. But I think like if you like your good friends, like they're gonna be there for you, and they're gonna understand. And I think as long as you communicate for yourself and advocate for yourself, even if it's just like a roommate you don't know, I've seen nothing but positive things with my male friends with diabetes. And yeah, if anything, I think it's just like it helps because they kind of joke about it, and it that always helps like alleviate some of the seriousness. So that's what I've seen.
I love this question. Is there an item that you didn't use when you were at home, probably diabetes related, that having at college has made your diabetes easier to manage?
Extra low supplies, like so much extra low supplies, like literally just having a refrigerator with actual food in it is so helpful. But then when you become older and you finally run out of like the final fruit snack, it really is like a wake up call to be like, oh, I always need to have this in my house. Like this is the one thing that can't run out for groceries. So definitely say low supplies.
I liked glucose tablets. That wasn't something I really used growing up, but it's something I can really just fit in my pocket. Like if I'm gonna go to like a little concert at my school, I could just put it into my back pocket and don't have to worry about lugging around like a big snack or wearing that, you know what I'm saying? Like those are just things you could just pop in your mouth really easily. So just having a few of those when you want to go out and you don't want to feel like you have to carry so much on you. Um, I feel like that you should definitely add that.
I was just gonna say the exact same thing as Bella, so she did great. Definitely glucose tabs. They're just easier to carry, in my opinion. And I've had actually multiple juices like bust open in my backpack. So I think glucose tabs are the way to go when you're walking around campus and things like that.
Yeah, don't carry around like bananas. I've done that and it's bad. Just don't do that.
Any other questions or anything else from the panel that you're like, ooh, I really want to like share this tip? Ooh, favorite glucose tabs.
I like the orange ones. I don't know what
I like,
flavor.
oh, sorry. I like the grape. The purple. That's it. Like it's just, I don't even know if it tastes like actual grape.
I know I'm like much older and haven't been in college for a hot minute, but one thing I do now that I love that I feel like is related, because I don't like glucose tabs really, is Skittles. And I got the like reusable bags. I can't remember the brand name right now. Stasher bags, and they have a really tiny pouch that's probably like this big. And I fill that with glucose tabs, and it will fit in my pocket. It will fit wherever. And I know that a Skittle is like 1 gram of carb, so I can be really like accurate with my dosing depending on like what my blood sugar is, and it's super fast acting for me. So if you don't like glucose tabs, that's another like option, is get a small pouch and carry on Skittles.
These are my favorite gummies. I don't know if the Welch's ones. They're really small too. I could just put it in my pocket. If you don't like glucose tabs, because I know they can get kind of gross, but these are really, they actually work really fast too. So
Anything else? Questions from the audience? Things that our lovely panel and or Peyton would like to share about their experience?
Yeah, maybe if you guys have like one last piece of advice or note of encouragement just for everyone getting ready to go off to college next semester.
I would say don't be afraid to tell people that you have diabetes. That's something I feel like I just got over. And if you don't feel like they care, or you really just don't, you don't need those people in your life. So really find those people that are going to be your cheerleaders, your supporters, and you'll find them. Trust me. It'll take a while. It might feel like forever, but just be true to yourself.
I will say, we all might have diabetes, but truly diabetes does not have us. And remember that, like, as you live every day, like, there's gonna be good, there's gonna be great days, and you're like, holy crap, my sugar's been like literally so good all day. And then there's gonna be awful days where you just feel like crap and you just want to be in your bed by the end of the day, and that's okay too. Truly, every day is different, especially in college. And don't be, nervous, don't be scared to like really embrace the craziness of it, and get involved, in the link. And if your school has a chapter, definitely sign right up for it. If not, you could always start one. So
I would say one last piece of advice. It's kind of similar to Bella's too, is just like be kind to yourself. Diabetes is a disease where like a lot of shame can come in, and just remember, like, not only are you going to college, you're going to college and like taking care of yourself with diabetes, and that's like it's just incredible. And like it's like Brenna said too, like it's not gonna be perfect every day, and just uh like self-kindness is a daily thing. Sounds cheesy, but like just like go easy on yourself. It'll be okay.
It's so good to hear everyone's like opinions after. Like it's so very refreshing. Oh, I would say like the advice I would give, and this is something that like our supervisor has also said to us, so I really can't claim this one like as my own, but it's say yes until you have to say no. And I definitely think with diabetes, that can be something where it's a little hard to sometimes gauge when you need to say no, but being comfortable saying no to doing anything, especially because you have a health condition, is really, really valid and also a hard skill to learn. So I definitely suggest like going into it. Like it's a completely new environment, completely new experience. So like do say yes, but like you're allowed to not do stuff too. Like you don't have to do anything. So it's really up to you.
Well, that concludes our event. I really want to thank our panelists for taking their time out to share their experiences with you all today, and all of you for joining us live for this program. I hope you got what you needed out of it. We will be putting the recording up, so you'll have access to that. You'll get the link sent out most likely tomorrow. Plus, we have all of our other Off to College recordings from this current year up on the Resource Hub, and we will be having more events throughout the rest of 2024. I want to thank our sponsors for our Off to College series, Dexcom, Lilly, Novo Nordisk. Why can't I say Biotis, and Sanofi. And just some other reminders for our caregivers and parents on the call. If you aren't part of our active Facebook group, you are more than welcome to join. There are tons of great conversations going on over there. So feel free to join in with our other parents and caregivers. For the young adults on the call, like Brenna said, think about starting a chapter if your school doesn't already have one. It's obviously a great experience. Or head on over and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and TikTok. So again, we really appreciate you all joining us tonight, and have a great rest of your summer. And we hope to see you at other programs.